Hello and welcome to the latest health news that you will not see on the mainstream media, and I've talked about a lot of things lately. In particular, if you're looking at a health news show, we're talking about the coronavirus all the time. I'm going to present something a little different here, but for a particular reason in relationship to the coronavirus, and that's because sugar actually feeds candida and a lot of those infections. So when we typically have infections or we're sick, for example, which we shouldn't get sick if we have a healthy diet also, we pretty much want to stay away from sugar, and by all means necessary, even if it's a raw or really low glycemic sugar, which is of course great. The type of sugar though that we'd probably want to avoid the most though is actually the fake sugars, the non-sugars, the non-sugars, sometimes the sugar alcohols, the processed artificial synthetic sugars, however you want to put it. These sugars obviously do not come from nature. They can actually wreak havoc more than real sugars and other sugars that we talk about. So very bad, because I don't consider sugar as a good thing in any case. Yeah, coconut sugar will have some minerals. Yeah, stevia will not raise your blood sugar at all. Even though stevia products are a little I have a video on that. You can check it out because a lot of them have other ingredients that aren't stevia, just like monk fruit sweeteners as well. But coconut sugar, yeah, sure, it may have minerals, but so does a lot of all the colored sugars and all the colored salts. It doesn't mean those things are necessarily good for you, though, in their biochemical form and how they interact within your body. So sugars as a whole, of course, I don't really like sugar. But that being said, a little bit of sugar doesn't hurt. And I think the message here is that, well, sweeteners are not good in any case. What could we do to actually curb our sweeteners as a whole? And I'm going to share some strategies at the end of this video. But in regards to the coronavirus, if you haven't already, check out the videos that I've done on it. I'm kind of sick and tired of a lot of the scientism going around, only particularly because looking at this as a more common sense or natural point of view, it doesn't seem like we should always be looking at all these statistics and say, okay, well, maybe the fertility isn't actually 15% because the same scientist came a week later and said, oh, well, that was inaccurate because they only studied 41 people, which is true. If you look at the study that said there's a 15% fertility rate. So it's lower than that. So it's somewhere probably between 5 to 10%. But still, we can get all like mumbo jumbo about all these numbers. They can go all over the place. The point is that, well, we should worry, we should prepare. What hurts with preparing? What's wrong with that? And I don't see an issue with that. So the general principle underlying basis there is why not prepare? And if that gets people to prepare more, fine. It's a natural study that was conducted. It's not like it was fake. So what? 41 people. I know it's a bad sample size, but the numbers are everywhere. I mean, it depends on the populations you're looking at. Depends on their diet, the immune systems, their blood, type, as I mentioned before. There's a whole bunch of things to look at. And of course, the CDC wants to blame it on bat soup or particularly what they're eating as the cause of this virus. It could be, I don't know. But honestly, there is a lot of evidence supporting the fact that this is a lab-made disease. So if you haven't checked out my videos on coronavirus, please check it out and you can decide for yourself. But I think providing a different perspective is also important because instead of always having the right official numbers and saying, well, this is that and this is this, and we can only get proven stuff to share it with the public, how about it's okay to have a little bit of conspiracy? Because first of all, conspiracy is there for a reason. It's as a question, okay? And there's nothing wrong with questioning the current narrative. In fact, that's how we innovate, is actually questioning the current narrative so we can emerge stronger and see something different for once, do something different for once. That's how we find our health. But, if we're looking at innovation in this point of view of viruses in different environments and not having enough information, it doesn't hurt to just throw some things out there. The CDC can just throw some ideas out there so people can start looking into it for themselves. So, okay, maybe the CDC doesn't want to agree 100% with vitamin C, but we see all these studies already, and we see the tons of vitamin C that they're putting into these Chinese hospitals. Heck, because most of the vitamin C comes from China anyway, so they might as well. Why isn't the CDC talking about that? We know vitamin C is extremely powerful when it comes to viruses and infections. So if it's reducing sugar and if it's increasing vitamin C and maybe adding some of the things I mentioned in the video, It's a lot, and clearly I don't have all of it either, because I haven't prepared long enough. Some people have prepared for a while, and that will probably be the best people who can survive this. So while they were called crazy for preparing in the past, that they would probably be the ones that best deal with this. Now I get it. There's also conflicting research when it comes to comparing this with the flu. So people want to say, okay, well, this is not as bad as the flu, and other people are saying, oh my gosh, it's worse than the flu because of how it spreads and stuff. And then it's a different version of SARS and MERS together. It's genetically engineered, so it has a crazy spread rate and all that. It's just the numbers are everywhere, and I just don't want to be so set in stone and then also have that mentality like everything must be scientific, that scientism point of view. I think they're both dangerous, okay? And then also not preparing for anything and not caring at all is also super dangerous. So it's like extreme left brain, okay, we need to get all the facts together. Oh, according to my calculations, like, no. And then there's the right brain, which is like, I don't care what's happening, I'll just go with it, you know? Oh, well, the CDC will just tell me, oh, they'll come out with a vaccine, even though it's probably going to come in a couple months, as they said on TV. Well, you know, on cable, whatever, on their media press announcement, the press is like vultures. They're like, well, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on this? Like Trump knows a thing about medicine, right? Or his team that's there and barely has time to do any research for themselves because they're always getting fed by other people. But I'm just saying, just putting that out there. Some thoughts, some questions, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You know, I made a poster. I might do some advocacy in real life about this because I don't see a lot of people doing that. And I think it's important to do in any case or scenario. I just want people to be prepared. I just want people to be self-sustainable. And when it comes to their health, that's what it means to me. So when I share these articles, it's not like me telling you what to do, but rather sharing you a different perspective and not trying to be too scientismist, even though there's studies here and all that. Okay? It's me also just questioning, right? Because that's how we get science to begin with, actually. It's just questioning. And I think we could bring it down to really simple, easy to understand terms. And that's how the truth, I believe, should be interpreted, as I mentioned on the previous radio show appearance in Pocono Speaks podcast, if you haven't checked it out, about how to find health and where health goes wrong. I think that's really important. Of course, that whole thing didn't get into effect because we only got halfway through before the whole footage cut off. But, you know, it is what it is. You can't fix technological mistakes. And there are people of the past who never got the opportunity to come up on camera like this and speak the way they do. So anyways, I'm going to cut to the point because I could only stall for so long, right? But low-calorie sweeteners damage the gut microbiome, causing obesity, new research says. New research shows that artificial sweeteners and the low-calorie sweetener stevia found in certain foods and beverages can impair gut health and increase the risk for weight gain. So, you know, of course, it depends, of course, on the study and how they use the stevia as an example, but a lot of the low-calorie sweeteners, other than stevia, often have more of the blame. Stevia is a plant by itself, and it depends on what stevia you're talking about. There's so many different forms. I mean, Food Baby even did a whole article about like how there's stevia leaf, and there's stevia extract, and then there's stevia flavor, and there's stevia. Like there's different. We have to be so specific, and then they also add other ingredients. They also process it different ways. So that's the world we live in, you know. Modern day problems, we need modern day solutions. But then what are we going to do? We need those solutions to bring us back down to simplicity, so we don't have to be in this complex chain of events where we're always looking for more complex solutions, because then we're just going to get lost. And then of course there's going to be conspiracy, because while all that's going on, there's the distraction, there's something else happening even greater, and who knows what. But that's the world we live in, and that's just the way it is. But we can fix that one step at a time, and our personal life is the most important, I believe, which is why I work with people one-on-one. You know, not to go on some extra rant in this video, but I think it's important to talk about. Because, yeah, we're talking about sugar, but people are addicted to dependence. They're addicted to having somebody tell them what to do sometimes. I mean, even doctors that go their whole life with people telling them, go to this school, you know, research here, but they have a lack of sense of direction until they're on their own, you know, kind of like a child growing up. But they go through quite a lot of years, you know, talking 8 years in medical school. So they come out, although with great smarts and great expertise, they don't know where to go exactly. That was said by Dr. Kanogia himself of Healthy Gamer, and I love what they do. I think it's really important. And he also treats people without necessarily needing drugs, because you can sit down with somebody, give them a drug, and make $1,000 in only like 15 minutes, or you sit down with somebody for an hour and only make like not even $100. I don't, I don't even make that much in one sit, so not even close. But regardless, and I spend extra time with people, and I think that's okay, especially since I'm starting out. And I'm just honest here. That's what it is. I think it's just honest work, and that's what's going to get us real medicine. Is instead of all these people telling you what to buy and what to think and what to do, for once, we can have this honest people going out there saying honest things, speaking their mind. I mean, that's why Trump was so popular. Not saying I'm for Trump, okay? I'm just saying that it's why he's so popular. Part of it is he's human. Talk about an expression of why nature is the answer. We don't want too much scientism, but we also want to just be human, because after a while, this world that we live in, full of technology and denaturing aspects, will turn us into a robot and something that really isn't us. So I'm trying to bring people back down to who they are, which is, well, okay, yeah, there's low-calorie sweeteners out there that probably shouldn't exist. So what are some of the solutions that have always existed? So the researchers found that the offspring of rodent mothers who consumed these sweeteners during pregnancy had a greater amount of body fat, impaired glucose control, and unhealthy alterations in gut bacteria, despite never consuming any low-calorie sweeteners themselves. All right, and that's crazy. So we talk about transgenerational stuff, and we see a lot of that in heavy metals and a lot of other modern day problems that we have more than ever. And of course, there were some problems that existed for a while. Obviously, there were always viruses back then. If we're going to talk about the coronavirus again, there was always viruses back then, and there were different versions of SARS and so forth. But a lot of them, yeah, maybe you want to say vaccines were part of the success. I'm not necessarily against vaccines. I have an open mind to everything, but then again, we also had soap, we also had hygiene, all this other great inventions that, if you want to talk about innovation, doesn't get that much credit. And if you look at some of the people that invented things like the microscope, they were called crazy, they were called quacks. Now they're celebrated and we use their stuff all the time. And a lot of people clearly aren't in our history books. We don't learn a lot of history. Just putting that out there, but you're never going to hear about nutrition or health in your school class, are you now? You aren't. But you're not going to learn common sense either. So could health be common sense? I think so. Because if you take away all these boundaries that we put in our way, modern day problems that we created for ourselves, then yeah, it could be rather simple to see because it's right in front of us, right? It's just like living among the very same plants that have the medicine. Now, extracting that medicine, okay, it could be hot water, it could be alcohol, right, as Mike Adams puts it. I think it's really important that you can extract medicine out of anything through such ways, okay? But we could also extract sugars, and then we could always turn them into synthetic forms and turn those into drugs, and then, poison people, and then depopulate the world, and then to lower global emissions, as like Bill Gates says, and then, like, I don't know. But then we could also make drugs out of any natural plant that exists, because we take the premises out of nature, and that's what turns it into denaturing aspects, is once we take it out of nature and truly turn it into something else. That's when it becomes a problem. Okay, so low-calorie sweeteners change the host microbiome, leading to decreased satiety, which means fullness, and alter glucose homeostasis. We know that if you have an insulin increase, which means maybe you're consuming a high carbohydrate diet, not a processed carbohydrates, basically, insulin is going to be raised, and then therefore you're going to have more stress. You're also going to have worse sleep, and you're also going to be less full. Okay, a lot of these things come hand in hand with insulin and how that works. So insulin, you could think the same as blood sugar, the same thing as glucose. It's trying to make it a little easier for you. So it says it alters glucose homeostasis. As we know, homeostasis is like balance, basically. So it alters this blood sugar balance. Our body's meant to produce this much insulin to how much carbohydrates we consume, and it's very accordingly. Our bodies are smart. They learn accordingly. But when we overload it with toxins, or overload it with chemicals, or overload it with the viruses, and overload it with sugars, where it's not helping the immune system at all, if anything, only hurting it, then yeah, we're going to have a problem. I mean, to me, looking at that point of view, it's common sense. You're eating something that literally has no nutritional value, something that literally has no substance to it, like you're drinking literally liquid sugar. I mean, that's what they've done to milk through all pasteurization, homogenization, processing to death, and then the USDA and all these agencies always promoting milk all the time. right? And then you see the same thing with soda and Coca-Cola. I mean, what is that? There's no nutrients in that. Okay, and there's nothing good in that. I mean, just look at the label. There's nothing good. You can't even, like, it doesn't even require that much science to figure out. That's the thing. Things that don't require that much science to figure out are the things we should probably be looking at, instead of all this stuff where we're like speculating, like, how could we be God? You know, like global warming. And are associated, so these low calorie sweeteners are also associated with increased calorie consumption and weight gain. And we know this now. There's also a lot of correlations with cancer, actually, so not very good, not very good. So what do we do with this artificial sweetener, you know, artificial flavors and colors and sweeteners and all the artificial people in our lives that are fake, right? So we got to use some simple little hacks, right? Simple little hacks, simple little tricks, like, you know, torture with love, right? Torture with tenderness. No, but, you know, don't let people take you down, and do what you know is right. So what could be right here? We can actually use some simple science to help us with these sugar cravings, like adding lemon juice or apple cider vinegar to your water and drink lots of clean water in general. Well, yeah, we want to survive, let's see, a week or two without water, but we can survive weeks without food. So, okay, does that need much science to prove? Not really, okay? We need water, okay? I mean, literally our body's made up of water, if that's one thing you want to figure out pretty easily. So avoid or eliminate processed foods. This may take some willpower initially, but over time it gets easier as your palate and brain adjusts. And brain, yes, your mentality is going to be the first step. It's that awareness of, yes, I'm consuming processed foods. I could be consuming something better. And I assume a lot of people who follow this freedom movement, although they're in for, you know, finding the truth about the virus and stuff like that, they got to find the truth within themselves, which means also consuming the right foods that are intended as truth. And I stress that is important because people in the medicine field don't relate to politics, and people in the politics or freedom field or truth field don't relate that to food. And I'm sorry, but food helps boost your brain health and boost your brain function, so that's going to help you in all regards. And it's literally makes you who you want to be, and then also helps display the person that you want to portray, right, in this world. It really is a reflection of your attitude. And if you want to consume processed food but don't want to consume processed information, then you're picking and choosing here, and you're still taking a large chance here. You know, to really walk the talk, if you want to be for truth, I'd say it's having all these aspects in your life to some degree, and taking some change for once that is different from other people, because that's what we mean by wanting truth, right? Is questioning the current narrative. So doing something different, whether it is adding in certain foods, you could do supplements, but I think foods are also really important, because again, you're getting that package of stuff. Some people will swear by supplements and only buy supplements and say this is what has everything I need, but that may not necessarily be the case for you. Okay, a lot of supplements, very controversial too. Science, it's always fighting. All right, but again, it always depends too on the quality and different things like that. So you could do your own research, and you will probably conclude that, yeah, certain supplements could be really useful if they're of high quality. However, it says stock up on fruit. So fruit is one such packages, and guess what? It's raw nutrition. So as your body gets used to being free from super sweet frankenfood, which is like GMO food, for example, things like berries and citrus will naturally start to taste sweeter and more rewarding. Plus, unlike more artificial sweetened things, fruit contains fiber and many other nutrients that boost gut health and help you lose excess pounds. In fact, when you cut out sugar, major sugar sources out of the diet, like a lot of the processed ones, and then you go back to it after a week, it's like, whoa, and that is sweet, okay? Like, wow, okay, I was consuming this all that time. But yeah, fruit, you have the fiber, it binds to the sugar. Fiber, sugar also basically digested in the gut microbiome, so very similar relationship here. Your gut microbiome is also one of the key aspects in losing weight and in building immunity. So therefore, that covers pretty much everything from the coronavirus to losing weight, which is pretty much everybody's goal when it comes to health, almost. Okay, but I'm just saying, putting that out there, your gut is really a key aspect here, and sugar is not going to help that. Eat a proper proportion of clean protein and healthy fats to keep you satiated, very important. So again, to keep you full, and therefore you're not craving anything. Cravings are something that you might need a health coach or somebody who can look at it from an outside point of view and ask you questions as to why those cravings are coming about. It could be a lot of aspects in your life that sometimes you go overlooked. Eat magnesium-rich foods, including leafy greens and nuts. Very important. Top source of magnesium for many people is peanut butter that you find in Reese's peanut butter cups, and that's of course loaded with sugar. In fact, high fructose corn syrup, which we know is also laced with mercury, and is actually quite equivalent to agave syrup. If anybody thinks agave is healthy for you, it's actually really high in fructose, so you might want to think that one over. Fructose is not very good when it comes to energy usage within the body. We want glucose mainly when it comes to better forms of sugar. But again, notice it's not like we're mentioning add in alternatives to sweeteners here. We're adding in clean protein, healthy fats, magnesium-rich foods, lemon juice, apple cider vinegar. None of that stuff has sugar. Now, fruit, of course, has a little bit of sugar, but the fiber is really going to help us out there. Now, it says keep to regular meal times and avoid letting yourself get too hungry, as this may weaken your ability to resist the sweet stuff. So keep to regular meal times, make it a schedule for yourself, and if you get too hungry, then you might overeat when you do eat, and you might have some other cravings alongside that. So it says remember your why. Whether you want to lose weight, improve your skin health, ease chronic joint pain, or simply feel more in control of your food choices, there are plenty of wonderful reasons to cut back on the sugar, artificial or otherwise. Write down your goals and review them daily to help you stay focused and on track. And that's the whole point and reason why people have a health coach, is to keep them on track with their health goals. They establish their goals in the beginning, and we break that down into smaller goals like that, and we start reviewing it, and we start keeping them accountable, and we start asking questions, and we do that through a course of time. And this is just one thing, right? This is just sugar. A lot of people may struggle with a whole bunch of things, so we can go step by step, one at a time. And I hope this was a helpful video with some useful tips in case you are a client or somebody else who's interested in how sugar may affect the microbiome and how actually sugar can actually make our immune system far weaker against these viruses that are out there and will always be out there, okay? Regardless of when you're listening or watching this video, you know, there's always going to be some sort of virus going around, and people are always getting sick. So I think a good way to know if you're healthy is actually by not getting sick, by knowing that you're consuming foods with nutrition, by knowing that you feel full, by knowing that you don't have any cravings, by knowing these things that don't necessarily need science, but having justification around happiness, having justification around being an individual that's content with their life because they have these things to support them, and that's all they need oftentimes is support. Not more money, not more of this, but sometimes just content, just necessities that are there just in a denatured form and need to be switched to a natural intended form for humanity. Thank you very much for watching. Corey Edmund Angela, Nature's the Answer. 2019-2020 flu claims 10,000 lives in the U.S., yet Western medicine continues to ignore this one vitamin solution. So I talked about the coronavirus, I talked about the flu, and how a lot of the claims and different studies and statistics against each other and saying, well, okay, more people die from the flu or less people die from the flu coming to be, and that the coronavirus is worse or it spreads worse, and that maybe it's a lot like the Spanish flu and so forth. It's very important to look at all these aspects, and I'd be willing to hear your thoughts. If you are somebody who knows a lot about the flu and how much it may be compared to the coronavirus, please share your thoughts in the comment section below. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it and what information you saw. But I think it's also really important to look at the general basis here and what we know to be true through nature. And one of the things I mentioned in my coronavirus videos, and as we see is being shipped in tons to China and different hospitals, because vitamin C is actually made in China as well, is vitamin C. And vitamin C has been known to help cure things like sepsis. We know there's a protocol for that. So if there's a protocol for flu, then we know vitamin C is of course going to be somewhat helpful to any viral epidemic, including the coronavirus, as we saw in other statistics. And we saw out for things like iodine and other solutions if you want. You can watch my video, you'll see other solutions, but vitamin C is a very core component that you see firing again and again and again because of how simple, how cost efficient, and how effective it can sometimes be. The only problem is when you try to get a lot of vitamin C, and it doesn't have to necessarily be non-GMO, although a lot of it does come from GMO corn or just GMO foods in general. You're looking at vitamin C, you can get some from citrus, like in oranges, but get enough. But let's say you get a lot in like a powder form, which is great to buy in bulk, or like from a capsule, and you get maybe 1,000 milligrams, and that's basically equivalent to 1 gram. And let's say you're consuming around, let's say 30 to 50 grams, you're going to have some side effects. But if you were to get liposomal vitamin C, you're spending more money and you wouldn't have those side effects. Or if you were to get IV vitamin C, you're spending more money, but you're getting a high dosage without any side effects. So IV sounds the best, and that's what a lot of these studies are based on. However, you can still do regular vitamin C. So let's see what they have to say about this in relationship to flu. So it says, are vaccines manufactured with last year's virus, as we know for the flu? Are they really the answer? So probably not, and maybe that's why many experts are turning to a surprisingly simple and effective remedy, vitamin C. So it takes them about a year to just develop a flu vaccine, so therefore it's like last year's flu strain. So it's not going to protect you against this year's flu. And in addition to that, we see things like aluminum as the main ingredient, thimerosal, in the flu vaccine, which you can look at the insert itself when you go to CVS, for example, and you ask for like the flu shot. You say, could I have the insert? I want to read it. It says it hasn't been tested on pregnant women, has been tested on children, and there were no double-blind placebo studies, something like that. And a whole bunch of scientific stuff. Of course, it's in fine print, so you can barely read it, of course, but it's there, and I promise. And there's pictures, of course, I could always show on this video, but if you are interested, I'll just link it to you. And thimerosal, aluminum, not good, and yet that's the main ingredient. It's a heavy metal, basically, obviously transgenerational, will affect many processes in the body, act as minerals in the body, get into different pathways that's not supposed to be going, interrupt with different processes, so not very good. But it says that vitamin C, which is ascorbic acid, reduce cold and flu symptoms by a whopping 85%. Okay, so that's quite well, as we see in a study from New Zealand, when we saw people were getting reported from this, and there was other reports showing this as well. Like I said, there's a lot of information on vitamin C, and if you're interested, I have past videos on some of those studies, but we're going to go over some here. So it says, according to a 2019 case report published by the International Society for Orthomolecular Medicine, the ability of vitamin C to, quote, upregulate the immune system, end quote, is well documented, and there is, quote, abundant of documentation of the ability of vitamin C to cure a number of viruses, end quote. So not just flu, but viruses as a whole, because we often refer to the coronavirus as the Wu flu, right? Hashtag Wu flu, right? That's a common thing people relate to it. And then again, comparing to like the Spanish flu in terms of numbers, often what we see by projections, we see a correlation there. So vitamin C is maybe one of those things. I don't know, I shouldn't even say maybe. It's something that I think everybody should have in their house. So one like such key thing is generally having more vitamin C the sicker you are, as it says right here. Actually, I see. Keep in mind, the general rule is the sicker you are, the more vitamin C you need. So that's generally what I believe in too. And generally when people are sick, maybe like 5,000 is enough, 5,000 milligrams. Okay, and then maybe like 75 zinc, because zinc actually lessens the duration of your cold. And then having things like selenium and iodine will of course help as well. I cover that in different videos too. But vitamin C is a core aspect. And so it says vitamin C is still not routinely used against the flu, and none of the various forms of vitamin C are included in the formularies of nearly all U.S. hospitals. They don't even consider it an option. They don't even use it to help or assist, even though the science is clear from so many studies. Okay, I mean, they use this all over the world, but they especially don't use it in the U.S. Because notice, it says nearly all U.S. hospitals. It says infectious disease processes rapidly accelerate vitamin C depletion and greatly increase vitamin C requirements. So when you have a disease, you actually need vitamin C. So maybe not giving you a blood test during the time to see if you're deficient, but you need lots of vitamins, and especially a lot more than what's recommended for daily allowance, like 100 compared to thousands, which we know are used in these protocols. Yes, we're going to need thousands, especially if we're in a bad condition. So there's a case report, and they describe what happened when they provide a 25-year-old man sick with the flu with high dosage intravenous vitamin C therapy. After just 1 day of at-home infusion, the patient's flu symptoms, including weakness and headache, improved, quote, dramatically. Okay, they were also on the supplementation of vitamin C, high potency multivitamin echinacea, and CoQ10. Very important vitamins. Now again, there's so many. You can go down the list of just say, well, this one's great, this one's great. Oh, you know what? That one's good too. Oh, wait, that one's great too. Well, don't forget about this one, right? You can just always go down the list and say, well, this herb is also great. Oh, well, also this herb. Well, also this essential oil. Oh, but don't forget about this essential oil. It never ends. And you know why? It's because there's so many components that it's better to just get food, get the food, get the full package. This is what I'm saying. So many people are dependent on supplements, and that's great. And, if you're trying to look for alternative ways, you're already on the right track. Vitamin C alone you can buy, but make sure you always have other support systems in place. You have other options. You have other things to fall back on. Let's say you don't want to have an overdose of vitamin C because of the side effects. Maybe you want to buy other things like the iodine, like the chlorine dioxide, like the colloidal silver, whatever, for these viruses. As I mentioned in the video, it's very important, and maybe by having a little bit of each, then we don't have to worry about side effects, and we could still get in good support that our body needs. So it says studies on high dose vitamin C oral supplementation or even IV can feature amounts of 1,000 milligrams to many thousands of milligrams, because it's water soluble. So if you have excess, you actually just pee it out, and you take it multiple times per day. Right, so it's better to do it multiple times a day. So let's say even if you're sick and I say 5,000, right, a couple times per day, I'd say 5 times a day actually, just to get it spread out perfectly, especially since your body will deplete itself of vitamin C and you'll pee it out. So you don't want to do it all at once. You want to do it spread out. So just keep in mind the general rule is the sicker you are, the more vitamin C you need. I'm going to say that I don't care how many times. More than the current recommended daily intake of 90 milligrams for an adult male and 75 milligrams for an adult woman. So that's literally the recommended intake. Meanwhile, there's studies proving that this stuff can kill cancer and sepsis and flu and crazy. In the coronavirus itself, there's studies now. So this flu season, to invest in a high-quality vitamin mineral program that involves supplements and healthy vitamin C-rich foods like organic kale, broccoli, citrus fruits. You'd be surprised about what actually has vitamin C. Even potatoes, regular potatoes. It mentions sweet potatoes. It mentions camu, which is the best source of actually plant-based vitamin C. It's a berry. And you get a lot of vitamin C from camu. Talk about don't want to do supplementation and really want to do something that's down to nature. Camu is your best friend there. Kiwi, bell pepper, papaya. I know that citrus fruits also includes things like lemon, not just oranges. Lemon's got full spectrum, I believe. It's like full spectrum. It's like, well, there's D2, there's D3 for like vitamin D. D3 is obviously the best form. Okay, but you look at the sun. The sun gives you vitamin D full spectrum. So, that's what I mean by full spectrum. It's like, where is it intended source to be? And you'll see vitamin C is mostly known to be in citrus fruits. But don't forget, it's also all these other sources. It's in a lot of foods. And food is what you should be focusing on in any which situation. So things like chicken soup could help somebody with sickness. We know that. Right? Maybe bone broth too, definitely, for the micro gut biome. I talked about that in a recent video. However, look at vitamin C. Look at the different vitamins, and you'll see that it's not just one supplement, not just one food, not just one answer, not just one vaccine, but having a whole support system in place. And maybe you don't even need the vaccine. Hey, I'm just asking a question. Maybe you can use a full support. Does it hurt, is my question to you. And my answer is nature is the answer. Thank you very much. You can decide for yourself from that answer to which poses another question. Thank you very much. My name is Corey Enderlot. Nature's the answer. Thank you very much for watching.